Thank you, Louise, and hello everyone, and welcome to OTF Connects. Thank you for giving of your time to join us tonight. I'm Sirius Gerhan, the facilitator and coordinator of the OTF Professional Development Project. It is my pleasure to once again welcome Marie Swift, who will be facilitating tonight's webinar on differentiated instruction. Marie has facilitated a number of very effective webinars over the last 2 years for OTF Connects, and we're very grateful for her for doing this for us. So welcome, Marie.
Thank you. So I guess I'll take over now. Is there anything either one of you need to add, Louise or Syria?
We'll just show our little map page here for a second, and then we'll keep on going over to you.
Okay, awesome. So I'll just take a moment to introduce myself. I have a new role this year. I am a technology instructional resource teacher, K-12. And a big shout out to Marcy, who's my partner and does the same job with me. So it's nice to have her here with me, and great to have so many other people attending tonight. So my teaching experience is from the elementary panel. And I've taught students in every grade from junior kindergarten to grade 8, pretty much, except for grade 2. And I'm working with elementary and, as I said, secondary students this year. About half of my time is spent with a couple of different secondary schools, so I'm working a lot with kids from grade 9 to 12. So let me just move on to the next page here. And I've always thought about, I guess more so recently, I think about, does school fit all of our students? You can see my quote there, and hopefully that will get you thinking about possibly some of the students in your class or in your situation that just don't necessarily fit the mold. And in my experience, I find that teachers tend to be the ones that were the round pegs that fit in the round holes. We tended to be good at playing school. And I just wonder sometimes if we have enough respect and honor for the kids who learn differently than we do. Sorry, I apologize, I'm getting a FaceTime call right now. So what do we do about those kids that don't fit the typical school model? When I was a student, I don't remember a whole lot of differentiation other than when I was in the younger grades and there were readers and we had kids in different groups, and it was obvious, painfully obvious, which were the stronger readers and which kids had more difficulty. But I don't remember in any other subject areas that things were differentiated at all. So it's not hard to see why some students become disengaged at school. I recently attended a workshop, and one of the presenters talked about the fact that her father and her brother had some learning disabilities, and for them school was a soul-crushing experience. And that was really hard to hear. So we know that it's ideal to keep kids in their zone of proximal development. And what I want to do is just sort of throw out some ideas this evening of how you can engage your students and respect kind of where they're coming from so that they're motivated at school and it fits them. So I'm going to move on to the next slide. I want to tell you a story about Cassandra, and then I want to hear a little bit about you and your experiences and your students. So as I mentioned, I spend a lot of time in secondary schools, and one of my happy places when I first started to get to know the people in these schools was the Learning Center in one of the two schools. And after I'd been there several times, I met a girl named Cassandra, and on first impression, I saw her sitting at her desk, and she was almost looking really angry. She was slouched down. She had a hoodie on. It was pulled down over her head. She just didn't look happy at all. She was certainly not engaged, but looking very discouraged. And I spoke with her a bit about her phone, so I tried to make a connection with her. And then at a later date, we spent some time getting the students onto Google Drive, which is new in our board. So when I arrived in the classroom about a week or so later, it was a cooking day, and the other students were all at the back of the room, and they were doing their jobs, cutting up lettuce and frying bacon and so on. And she was the only one not engaged. She was sitting back at her desk and looking really angry. And the teacher, who was a wonderful teacher, he was encouraging her to join in. And I could tell he was frustrated with her. They sort of had some words, and she kind of stormed out of the classroom. So I went up to him and I asked him if it would be okay if I followed her. He kind of mentioned that, all she wanted to do was be in her phone, and I said, that I had an idea. I wanted to get her to, if she didn't want to participate in the cooking, I wanted her to sort of document it. I had an idea. And he said, in a very respectful way and kind of matter-of-factly, well, she can't write. So that didn't discourage me, of course, with my penchant for technology. So I went to meet her, and she was in a resource room, and I engaged her in a conversation about my phone. And I showed her an app called Pick Collage and showed her how she could use it. So you can see the image on the right-hand side of your screen. That is the result of our little visit with each other. So I showed her how she could use speech to text. So she didn't have to type the text that you see on there. She took all the pictures, and I showed her how to tap and insert the pictures. And she spoke into her phone. Now she has an Android phone and I have an iPhone. So at the time, I wasn't really certain of how to get the phone to do the text-to-speech portion and have her double-check her writing. So I did assist her a little bit with the writing. But in the end, she ended up presenting this Pick Collage on the smartboard because she was able to upload it into her Google Drive account. She opened her account in the laptop and she showed it on the screen. And she was so proud of herself. It was quite a transformation from what I had seen the very first time I met her until that day. It was quite encouraging. So now we could separate this a little bit, and maybe this will give us a chance to kind of identify where our backgrounds are. But what I'd love to know is, what are some of the challenges that your students have? Do you have a Cassandra? Do you have other students in your class that have specific challenges? So what I'd like to do is just open this up to a little bit of brainstorming, and you're welcome, as Louise encouraged you, to grab the microphone and speak, or you could also tell us a little bit about, whether you're from an elementary background or secondary, and maybe just grab the text tool and just take a moment and just jot down some of the challenges you can think of that your students have. So I'll get us started here. Oh yeah, anxiety. Okay, I'm going to, so we kind of have to spread out a little bit here. I'm having a little bit of trouble. Is anyone having any trouble typing? I think I'm going to choose the other text too. So it looks like a lot of our participants maybe are coming from the elementary panel. Are there any secondary teachers here?
Can you hear me?
Yes, thanks, Jameson.
I'm in a similar capacity where I'm both elementary and secondary as an assistive technology resource teacher. Over the past week, I've been predominantly in the elementary side, but I'm also servicing secondary students as well.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that with us. So I'm just adding the fine motor issues as a possibility. That could be elementary or secondary. Some people near and dear to my heart have significant issues with spelling. Yeah, processing issues, definitely. Do we have, yeah, paying attention and inattentiveness is common in our classes. And just general reading difficulties, I guess, challenges. Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, everyone, for sharing. Is there anyone who would like to just explain what, just so I have a better idea of where we're coming from in terms of your availability to technology, is maybe in the chat window, if we could just sort of quickly mention if you have, like if you personally use Android tools or iPhone, whether you have Mac or PC at your school. Maybe just if everybody can just give me a quick little burst of what technology is available to you at your school. So quite a good variety of different devices. So what I want to reassure you is that what I'm going to try to do is, I've got lots of things to share with you, and I'm hopefully not going to overwhelm you with too many things, but what I've tried to do is be very conscious of making sure that I've got, you know, examples and things that are suitable for students from kindergarten to grade 12, and also ensuring that I have things that are free and universal. I'm trying to do that as much as possible. So some of the things will be Mac-based, some will be PC-based, Android, iPhone. Some things are licensed for use in Ontario, and we'll get into all that as we go. So please don't hesitate to stop me and ask questions, or as Louise said, raise your hand. We'll make this a conversation, because the knowledge is in the room. I know you all have lots of experience, and I'm sure you'll have lots of things to share once we get going. So I'm going to move ahead to the next page, and I just want to explain, I'm trying to have lots of images, and I love using analogies, and of course a picture says 1,000 words. So my image of the Pink Shirt Day is what I'd like to sort of express as an idea that I've tried to encourage people, just like those boys started by wearing shirts to support the kids that were bullied and have everyone sort of included in the same way. I'd like to encourage people to think about the universal design for learning. So when we think about that concept that was inspired by architects, they discovered that when they put a ramp into a building, it gave access to people in wheelchairs, but it also was used by people with strollers or people pulling luggage. So it was something that was intended for some people but used by many. So I'd like you to think about the use of assistive technology and differentiated instruction as something that we should be encouraging for all of our students, so that the kids who really need it feel like they're part of the group, like the people wearing pink shirts. Does so that's my connection there. So I am going to click over to a video, and as soon as I do that, it'll start to play. If you can just check off your check mark when it's finished, then we'll get this going. So be patient, and we'll come back to that page in a moment. Okay. Okay, I'm deleting the link, so Louise, I don't know if you're helping me to put it in, but
I can do that. That's your first link from the list, correct?
Yes.
Here it is.
Oh, so you'll put it in the chat, and I'll put it in the... Okay, so I'm putting it in...
I can do both, whatever works for you.
Okay. Okay, I'll let you go ahead and put the first one in for me, and then we'll...
Okie doke.
Vera, that's, yes, the gifted education philosophy. That totally makes sense. I hope I'm saying your name properly. Vera? Is that right? Good. Okay, so you could click on the link if you want to, and then just check the button when you're finished watching, or we're going to put it in our web tour so you'll see it in your window come up automatically as well.
Okay, it already started playing in my web tour. Is everybody else seeing it? And sorry if my voice is over top of your video.
I'll put it in mine as well. So I technically don't need to watch it because I've watched it a few times.
What is technology?
Marie, your microphone's off just in case you're speaking.
Whoops, thank you, I was. I hope I didn't cut anyone off there either because I switched back to the slide, so we'll get in the groove here. But wasn't that awesome? I wasn't trying to advertise any particular company, by the way, but my thought in sharing that video was some of those are huge advancements, and they just are mind-boggling when you think about what the potential is with technology to change people's lives. And if we think about some of the simple tools that we have already in our hands, in students' pockets, in our classrooms, that, you know, think about what we can do to enhance their lives by those simple tools. So, let's move on to our next page. So this is kind of an overview of where I'm headed. I know the time is going to go by quickly. It already is going by quickly. So I just wanted to let you know that I want to remind you about knowing your students, and to talk separately, I'm going to give lots of resources for differentiated process. So by that I mean kind of the planning stage for students, like if they're planning writing and so on, so developing their process. Differentiated content, so not only like the text or the content that they're using, but the tools that they'll use to access that content. And then my fourth bullet is differentiated product. So we've been talking a lot lately about triangulation of assessment, and that we can't just always use a product to assess our students, but if we are when we are using the products, we need to make sure that they are differentiated and they're suitable for the students. Again, going back to the quote that I had earlier, or the notion that you can't judge a fish by how well it climbs a tree. And finally, I've got lots of tips for you as teachers on how you can make this work for you and for your students. So again, please ask questions, give suggestions, and share your experiences. I'm going to be pausing as we go through so that we can have some input from everyone. So as I said, I love analogies. I want to explain the picture of the boy in the life jacket. So my title is They're Doing the Same Thing. Okay, so both of these boys are about to go swimming, so they're doing the same task. It just looks a little bit different because one of them is wearing a life jacket to support him, to hold him up, to get him to do the same task. So that's what we need to think about and how we can put life jackets on our students. Okay, and I've give you a chance to have a look at that quote. I always tell my students that they're on a road with different skills in their lives, and it's my job to help them move forward on the road. So we need to scaffold them and find out exactly where they are. That's why we have to know them so well. We have to think about what their skills are, but also what their preferences are, so that we can best help them. So I want you to have in the back of your mind right now, I want you to think about your students in the classroom and think about what you do to differentiate the learning process for those students. And we'll come back and share that. So here we go into some of the, I'll call it a little bit more intensive sharing. And I just want to mention too that I have something for you at the end in which a tool that will allow you to access all of these links. So I'll remind you of that after. So I'm going to just get my pointer out here. Hopefully you can see that I'm pointing at the icon with it's a green circle with a light bulb at the top. That's the logo for a tool called Smart Ideas, and it is an OSAPAC licensed program. So what that is Ontario Software Acquisition Program Advisory Committee, and you might know that on your school network there are certain programs that are there, and they've been provided to all the schools by this Ontario organization. So they're basically free to schools and easily accessible for students to use. So that is a computer program. It's a wonderful graphic organizer that I encourage you to explore. And one of the key features of that is that students can do sort of a bulleted point form list, and then what they can do, they can take it from a web design. So imagine a web with different bubbles, and then they can change it into a bulleted list and then develop the text from there. So that's kind of exciting. I'm going to give you an example now of a Google drawing. So the red icon to the right at the top is the icon for Google Drawings. And could I just get people to answer me in the yes, with a yes/no check mark, to let me know if you have Google Drive available in your school board. It is a free tool, but I'm just wondering if it's something that you use on your board. 1, 2, there's a no, 3. Okay, so some people have access to it. That's awesome. Now, even if it's not supported by your board, it is something that you are able to get as a teacher and have your students access as well. So it is something that if your board doesn't have it, you might want to encourage them to get on board. So I'm going to put in a link for a Google drawing. Okay. Louise, I'm just having a little bit of trouble getting the URL in. Is there something I need to do that I'm missing here?
Let me see. Oh, it's yeah, you know what? Let me drop that one in. So this is the Google Drawing link, correct?
Yes.
So I'll drop that in. And folks, I'm just going to clear all your check marks. Give us a green check mark if you see the Google Drawing. Okay, Marcy sees it. Vera sees it. Okay, so it's probably there. And I will drop that in the chat as well.
So we're just having a quick look at that, and then we're going to go on to the next one. So we won't spend a whole lot of time here, but this is just a quick graphic organizer that I created just to show you how by having minimal text on a page it would really support students. Now what I intended to do, and I discovered on Sunday that I couldn't, I wanted to integrate some of these things that I'm doing and show them to you at the same time, because what I'm going to be showing you with some videos and explanation are some tools where they're speech to text. So what I would do with a student is combine this with one of those tools and have students who either prefer to do, just use their voice rather than spelling, or need to, that they can just say the words and then copy and paste them in. So we'll get into that a little bit later. So Louise, if you could just, James, when you have a comment? A question? Smart Ideas does, yes, it does have the ability to transform it into a word processor. So that's the beautiful part of it, is that it just takes it and I can't remember if you have to copy and paste it or if it automatically goes into a Word document. So that's a great question. So Louise, if you could just pop in the next Google Drawings link for me. This is sort of, I guess, a shout out to the younger. I wanted to make sure there was something for the younger students of younger, teachers of younger students. Oh, that one's not good. Okay. Okay, let's skip that one. I've got 2 different Google Drive accounts, so that's an issue. So I had an example. Basically, it was a Venn diagram of 3-dimensional shapes so that kids could just drag and drop things into the different areas where they needed to go to sort them out. So let's have a look at the next category, speech to text. So the first icon is just a symbol for Dragon Dictation for Android. The middle one is for Dragon Dictation, and it's an iPhone app. So you can just tap on it and speak to it, and it does a pretty good job of recording your voice. I'm not going to give you exact demonstrations and videos for each and every one of these, but these I will give you links afterwards. Now the one on the right-hand side, Marble Mouse. So Vera, does Dragon Dictation not work well for your kids? I've heard before that it's a bit challenging for some kids. It seems to, yes, Siri does work a whole lot better. I have had the issue with kids with challenges too. Yep. Yeah, so there are lots of wonderful tools, and I just wanted to present that one as an option for people who maybe have an older version of an iPhone. Definitely I would choose Siri, and yes, Jeff, that's a good point. Apparently Windows 8 has a really good voice-to-text tool, and that is integrated with a tool that I'm going to mention later called Read and Write Gold. So simple dictation, there's actually another one that it's called online dictation that I'm going to show you. And I don't know, I'm going to try to get the link for us, Louise. I don't know, or if that's something that I should let you do. Let's try that again. So I will go to the web tour again. Oh, and then it's cleared out for me. Okay, it's not letting me click in the box though.
Yeah, I think that Blackboard is feeling that it's also had enough of winter, and so I'll drop that in for you. That is the online dictation YouTube video. Should be starting right now.
So while we're waiting for that to start, Vera, you're asking about, like, do I have a professional blog? Okay, let's watch the video and I'll answer that. Awesome. That's fantastic, Vera. And that leads me into, actually I want to talk about a couple more things and then I want people to share. So for predictive spelling, there is a tool called WordQ. That's the symbol with the Q. It's WordQ 3 actually. And I had trouble recording my screen to show you a sample of that, but I just want to mention a couple of things. It's also an OSAPAC software, so it should be available on your school computers. And what I would like to mention, there are a couple of things that are annoying to kids about WordQ. Some kids absolutely love it, and it's one of the tools that I really feel strongly that every student should be using. And I'll give you an idea in a moment, but two things that are easily adjustable. One is sometimes when you highlight, so in addition to doing predictive spelling, WordQ also can read back text. So you can highlight text that you have written and it will read it back to you. And sometimes when it reads it back to you, it goes too fast. So there is a way in options that you can slow down the speed, because especially for our students who have processing issues, it just needs to be slowed down. It's a little bit too fast. Now for the predictive spelling, so basically as you're typing either in a blog post or a document, a Word document, all kinds of different online forms and tools, you can have WordQ open and it basically has this little box that follows you along and predicts what you're going to spell and gives you different options. So if you see the word, then you can click on it and it just pops it in and you don't have to type it. Now obviously the students that we're talking about, some of them may not recognize the word as it pops up. So the beautiful feature is that you can also have it read the word, so there may be 5 or 6 words that are given as options, and the computer program will read them to the students so that they can, just double check and make sure that that's the word that they've intended to use. So that little box that follows the kids around as they're typing sometimes gets annoying for kids. So there's a feature to leave it in place. So in the options under prediction, you can change that to have the little box stay in one place and then you can get it out of your way. So the fourth item on my list is vocabulary lists. And this was an idea that I actually got from Cassandra, who, by the way, I ran into in the hall and she was all smiles and said, "Hello, Mrs. Smith." So I've got a buddy for life, I think. Anyway, back to Cassandra. When we were talking earlier, she showed me in her phone that she has vocabulary lists. Like she has an extreme challenge with spelling. And what she's done is she's got a Christmas list and a Minecraft list and this and that. And it was just so exciting to see that she's got strategies. She's kind of, I guess, advocating for herself, and she's got some tools in place to help her with her challenges. So what I'd like to do, I've thrown a lot of things at you and there's a lot more to come, but what I'd like to do is just pause and ask you to either grab the microphone or, as Vera did, just pop in the chat and just tell us which of these ideas that I've mentioned so far do you see yourself using right away with your students? Or maybe go ahead and share if you have something similar. I've got lots of other things coming up, so we'll have more time to share it later too. So go ahead and tell us what you think you might use. Yeah, that vocabulary list it sort of blew my mind that she was doing that on her own. Yes, and there's so many more graphic organizers too, Jeff, besides just that.
Well, I think for myself, it's the graphic organizer, and even going back to what I was doing on Monday, I was working in a grade 3 class, and we were working on persuasive thesis, and so with the teacher I developed something similar to what you showed, and it's also great to see that I had the students using WordQ as well. So I think across the province we're kind of on the same wavelength with some of these programs that we should be using to help support our students.
Great, thanks so much for sharing. Is there anyone else who'd like to pop in and tell us what they plan to do? Okay, I thought someone was about to talk, but I'm not sure. Okay, so let's continue. Louise, could you please put in the next link? It's called the one about teaching kids. Oh, yeah, there we go. So this will be a combination of a couple of different things, 3 different things. Okay, so as you could tell at the beginning of that video, I was a little out of sequence because I was planning on asking people to explore that website, which is one of my favorites, Teaching Kids News. So does anyone have any questions about that combination? So it was using the Speak It with Clearly, which is also connected to Evernote, by the way, with the Teaching Kids News website. Any questions about that? So what I'd like you to do, just maybe, I'll pop in the link to that website. It's so awesome. Just maybe have a quick little peek at the Teach Kids News site, just to sort of orient yourself to the format. It's wonderful because it has all different topics, and just have a quick look there. Oh, awesome. What I noticed about the Teach Kids News site, and I can still talk to you hopefully while you explore the site because the audio won't be interrupting anything. It used to have a big emphasis on what grade level everything was intended for. And so that made me hesitate to share that website with the Learning Center at the school, at Cassandra's school. Because I didn't want those kids to be offended by something that maybe said it was for grade 3 to 8, for example. And if it's, a high school student who reads at a grade 3 level, they might be offended by that. But I find, as I said in the video, I really enjoy reading some of the articles. So it's very user-friendly, and I think it's really a very important tool because you can have kids go in and they can choose the topic that they're interested in, and that's not only, as I said earlier, it's differentiation based on ability, but also interests. We need to engage these kids. And just have a look, scroll down, like choose an article and explore it, but scroll down to the bottom because you can see that there are built-in questions, which is wonderful for teachers. Okay, so if there aren't any questions about that, actually give me a check mark when you're ready to move along to the next thing, if you've had a look at Teaching Kids News. Awesome. So it's really a wonderful website. So let's move on to the next video. I'm going to try this one, Louise, and see if I can get it in. We'll go back to a tour, and this is it's a quick little video that I've created for you to explain how to get the most out of your iPhone. And for those of you who don't have an iPhone, or students who don't have an iPhone, I apologize, because I know that there would be a very similar process that you would follow for an Android phone. And this is, I'll give a shout out to a colleague in my board named Andrew who showed me this in the first place. Louise, could you put the link in for me, please? Follow me. So hopefully everyone's tried that before on a phone, or maybe for some people it's new. That was that whole, I mean, I knew about speech to text and text to speech, but in the accessibility feature, that was, to be honest, it was new for me this year. In the top left, was sort of midway down the left-hand side, there's a symbol for Kurzweil. And Kurzweil is something that's been used with our board for many years. And I find that sometimes students in the secondary panel are sort of negative about Kurzweil, and I think, again, getting back to the whole pink shirt concept, I think kids really feel that they're different if they're using Kurzweil, and sometimes I've seen kids even get emotional and really annoyed when I'm trying to encourage them to use it. So one tool that I find is new and in many ways better is Read and Write Gold. So you can see Read and Write Gold sort of down the middle of this page. Let me see my order here. Okay. So for just a second here. Getting ahead of myself. Okay, so if you're using Read and Write for Google, okay, that's the version up here. If you go into a website, I couldn't demonstrate this because that was using the Google Chrome browser. So the really neat thing about that is if you have a text, like for example an article in Teach Kids News, then you would just hover over the beginning of the article, and this Read and Write Gold, or sorry, Read and Write for Google just automatically starts reading the selection. It's really awesome. Okay. So something else that I wanted to mention about Read and Write Gold, one of the really neat features that it has, when we click, when I demonstrated in the last video, how you can click and drag and then have something read to you. We all know that sometimes in websites there's funny little text over in boxes. So it's not really a text, it's more of a picture of text. And an example of this is in graphic novels. So when I was in one of the secondary classes, I was trying to encourage students to use Read and Write Gold. And when I showed this special feature, it's called a screenshot reader. And what it does is you just click and drag over some text that's not really text. So it could be an image of text. And it's absolutely amazing because this captures it and processes it and actually reads it to the kids. So screenshot reader is something that you should really look for and be aware of. So I've got such a long list of videos. I need to double check where my next one is. Thank you for your patience, everyone.
Quick question for you, Marie. The screenshot reader, is that one that they can access through OSAPAC? Is that one you just go on the web and download, but it's a free one?
That's a good question. No, unfortunately, currently it's not. I'm actually thinking I want to reply to they always put out a survey asking for what software tools teachers would recommend, and I would love to see that included. If everybody could just pop in the chat box, or maybe with a check mark, like that's something that our board just recently purchased. Is there anyone else who has that through their school board? Read and Write Gold, it's a program. It's kind of an add-on. It's just a little toolbar that goes across the top of the page. Currently our board only has it for secondary students, not for elementary. So I'm guessing it's quite an expensive program to purchase, but I'm not really sure. You are good with those links, Louise. Thank you. Okay. Okay. going to give us another video. Yeah, I had the follow me checked off. Louise, should there be a follow me box in the web tour or just in the...
It's up by the URL, but I can tell by the way the web tour is working tonight that it's not quite itself. So I'm happy to keep going for you. This is working when I do it.
Okay.
So which video would you like?
So the one that's called Video Notes.
Video Notes coming up.
So not the next one, but the one after. Yep.
Yep.
Okay, thanks for the check marks. Hopefully we're good. Okay, I think our timing is working out pretty well. When the video is done for me, it seems to be working at the same time for everybody else, so that's good. So let's have a chat. Are there any ideas that you have as to how you would use that? That's something. This was a brand new tool that I just found out about. I think within the last month. I don't know if it's brand new or if it's just new to me. It is a lot, Vera, I get that. And it's kind of tricky because it was a video in a video that you were watching. It is a little bit tricky, but when you think about, I guess, providing a video to students, maybe you could pause and ask, have them watch a video and ask them a question. I think it is tricky and definitely not something you want to start with for your students right away. And maybe if you're hesitant with some technology, it might not be the first tool that you go to. But I think we are a YouTube generation. We love watching. We love watching YouTube videos because we're so visual. Lots of people are visual, and it just helps us. So if we can access those as a different way to take notes, I think that would be awesome. Does anyone else want to jump in and give us some ideas of how you think you might use that with the teacher creating the notes on the video or the student creating the notes?
I'm actually just thinking about that, Marie, because I'm imagining, yes, having like a smart board up or something like that where the kids are watching a video and you're able to pause and perhaps students take turns or there's different sections or even videos that the students themselves are creating, and then other students can use some of those tools as well. Do you find that, as Vera said, it seems overwhelming right now because there's so many different options and they seem to overlap in some places, that with time or with particular students, they themselves find certain tools that they're happy to use, that they like, and that they will go to, and that you no longer feel like you have to think about when you're using the tool. It just happens. Is that kind of what the end result is once these tools are introduced?
Yes, absolutely, most definitely. Although, we do have to be careful because, in many, we've talked about kids who have special needs and maybe processing and other issues, so we don't want to overwhelm them. And I know I'm overwhelming you with lots of options, but you would want to just stick to, maybe one tool for speech to text and one tool for text to speech. I'm just providing lots of different options depending on what the availability is for you at your school.
But I imagine over time that learning to use the tool itself is no longer a barrier.
Right. Sorry, I'm trying to listen.
Yes, Vera's
at
questions are very deep.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good comment down there, Jameson. I'll let Marie respond there.
Okay. Sorry. So this is the... Yeah, that is very something that we need to dig into, isn't it? So if we're taking, so are you kind of thinking that if we take away the challenge of having them do the writing, how will it change them? And I'm not saying, you know, just to sort of take the whole process away, because I still believe that the kids need to plan and plan and draft and then revise and edit and so on. And I found, as a person who was trying to create all these videos over the last few days, you can't just think on the fly. You have to have a plan. So for us as teachers to think, well, if a student just says his or her answer, it's going to be a whole lot easier. It's not, because you really do need to think about what you're going to say, even if you're not using paper and pencil. Oh yeah, audio, video, novels. And I like the idea too about, you know, having kids create their own videos, and then it could be feedback from the teacher on the video or parts of the video. Or kids teaching each other things. Yeah, definitely speaking is very different from writing. Yeah, I think aloud. Awesome. This is a really rich discussion. You guys have all got me thinking too. Wonderful. Okay, we are really getting along here in our time, so I'm going to go ahead to the next page. This is content that we talked about Teach Kids News already. I don't know if you're aware of Simple English Wikipedia. Basically, it's like that encyclopedia type website, but it's a little bit watered down and simplified. Again, something that would be great to use with Clearly. There are other tools that sort of minimize distractions visually as well. And there are lots of book sites. I was going to take you into one, but I don't think we have time, but I will leave the link afterwards. So Bookflix is OSAPAC licensed, so you should have a login and password with your school board. Some school boards purchase the Tumble Book library, and not only are there picture books, but there are also chapter books for older kids. EQAO samples, I just noticed this because I haven't taught grade 3 for a couple of years, but when I was exploring it this recently for the grade 9, anyway with the secondary OSSLT, I discovered that the last 2 years with EQAO, the language booklets have, well, in the math too, I guess, have MP3 audio files. So as a teacher, if you're going to do something with your students, why not choose very carefully before you choose a read aloud or before you choose just a short text, find something that does have an audio version of it so that you can help the kids who need that, instead of, you know, choosing something and then having it try to fit all your kids. Maybe choose something that will fit in the first place, if you know what I mean. So that's a suggestion with those EQAO samples. And then BrainPop and BrainPop Junior are, now they're not free websites, they're paid websites. But every day BrainPop has a different movie of the day, and BrainPop Junior has a movie of the week. And what I liked to do, just to get another sort of dimension in with the learning, they're very visual and they're very engaging for the kids because they're animated. But I always turned on the closed captioning function so that the kids could see the text as well as hear it. So just another mode for the kids to learn. And I'm not sure if you're aware that when you go on YouTube, there's a button in the bottom that you can also put on CC. So if you're learning some content, I mean, whether it's, let's say, science, for example, you could put the closed captioning on, and then your students could see the vocabulary words as well as hear them. Now, just keep in mind that if the person who created the video didn't go in and just touch up the closed captioning, that they may not be done accurately. So that can be, yeah. Well, even mine, when I created my YouTube videos, I went in to check and it didn't really have what I was. But if it's a well-known one or a professionally created one, hopefully they have done that. So those are just some suggestions then about finding material that's accessible for all your students. Okay, now if we're moving along to the products, so we work on something so the kids have the process worked out to fit them just right. They've got content they can access. They've got tools they can access the content with. And now they're doing an assignment, a finished product after a unit of learning. So these are some suggestions that would help them to do it maybe in a way that is more suitable to their learning style. So I'll just go through some of these fairly quickly. I just mentioned that I don't know if all boards do this, but in our board we do something called CASI, which is a reading assessment for our junior and intermediate students. And an awesome tool to do that would be, yeah, an awesome tool would be VoiceThread. Now, VoiceThread is something that educators can get a free version of, which has some limitations. You can only do 5 voice threads. And basically a voice thread is when you see a picture and then students can click to respond to that picture or series of pictures by either drawing with the drawing tool, or they can create a little video of them speaking their answer, or they can just have an audio recording. So screencasting tools. One that's built, if you use smart boards, in the Smart Notebook software there's a smart recorder that's built in. So anything that's written on the board and collected with audio is put into a movie for you. This symbol here is for Explain Everything, which is an iPad app that is not free. It is, I believe, $2.99. I want to show you a really cool audio tool. I won't show you, yeah, well let's do the next video, which is Vocaroo, which is further down the list. Can you see that one, Louise? Vocaroo. Well, that's just a quick one. We'll have a look at that. Okay, I'm not sure what happened there. I don't know if yours cut off. My video cut off suddenly. Yeah. Yeah, the video stopped suddenly, but, oh, thank you, Vera, for sharing that. We'll have a look. Yeah, the sound stopped suddenly, but basically I was just saying about how you could use QR codes in different ways. Has anyone ever used QR codes with their students? So telegami, I won't get into that, but there's a video on the telegami website. So telegami, like origami, is wonderful because the students can either use their own voice or they can use text. And it's an animation, and you can choose the background. So it's a little bit like an animation, sort of a green screen effect, that you can put any image or a picture in the background. and you can combine different apps together. So I also just wanted to mention there are a couple, so Voki is another website that lets you create a talking head. We won't get into that one. Face Talk I did with a secondary teacher. We got pictures of these physicists, and the students had to do research on the physicist and have they had to sort of speak as the physicist. It was really cool. BitStrips for schools I really like. We all have an account as Ontario teachers, and there are some good features in there to keep in mind with your students because there's predictive spelling and an effective spell checker. The reason why I have this symbol for Google Drive here at the bottom and beside the word video is if students have devices, either an Android device, an iPhone device, an iPad, any kind of tablet, and they videotape something, if they go into a Google Drive account that you've set up for them or that they have set up, it's really easy to pull in a video into that account. So it's nice for kids to be able to just not even necessarily use a special app, but just use the video recording tool in their device and then share it with their classmates. Okay. So I'm going to skip over the next page quickly, and hopefully we will get back to that so that everyone else can share some of their resources. I want to save time for that at the end, but I also want to make sure that I get through some other things here. So for planning, of course, we need to make sure that our teaching meets the needs of all students. And I'm just going to read you a quote here. This does not mean that planning instruction for students with average achievement levels and then making after-the-fact modifications to meet the special needs of certain students. Universal design of learning encourages teachers to develop a class profile and then plan from the beginning to provide means and pedagogical materials that meet the needs of all students and not only those with special needs. And that quote comes from Education for All. I've got it listed in the resources after. So shortcuts, I want to mention shortcuts. If you have special tools that you need to give to a student, let's say you're handing out a worksheet to the classmates and then you want to give a digital copy to students, you can create a little shortcut on the desktop of your computer, and then you can just click and drag things into the desktop so that the students get the file. There's also a feature on, well, I'm sure it would be available everywhere, but you can photocopy, at our board anyway, you can photocopy a worksheet and then scan it to a PDF, and you can either email it to yourself or save it in a folder. So that way you can get it to your students and they can access it on their assistive technology. Okay, so feedback. So descriptive feedback. We of course need to make sure that the feedback, well actually let's try having a look at a document. So I created a Google document that I'm going to share with you, and I'm just going to put this in the chat, Louise. And what I'm hoping is it's accessible to everyone, but what I'd like to do is have you imagine that you're a student and you're in a document that you've written, and I want to show you how it's easy to give feedback. So let's give this a try. Just click on that link, please, and hopefully I'll see you popping into a document that I've created. Oh, I see some people in there already. That's awesome. So let's have a look at that. You can see that you're all coming up as anonymous animals. Most of you are. And what you can see is that we could all type in that document together. So that's one cool feature of a Google document, that we could all go in it together. But what I could do is, let's say this was an essay that you wrote. Okay, I could highlight. So if I'm highlighting here, I'm highlighting the word timely, and in the very top I'm clicking on the button that looks like a little speech balloon with lines in it. And then you can see on the far right that I can type a comment. So my comment would refer to the words that are highlighted in the text. Okay, so I'm just counting how many people are in here. Okay, so just back in the chat window, and I'm looking at both. Can you just put your hand up if you can't get into that document? We won't stay here very long, but I want you to just see how wonderful it is for giving feedback. So Marcy replied to my comment, and something I just discovered recently, if I click on the anonymous feedback at the top, and on the top right-hand side of it, you'll see the button Resolve. Since I'm not the one who created that piece of, okay, so somebody clicked on Resolve and made it disappear. If you're not the person who wrote the comment, but you click Resolve to make it disappear, the person who wrote the comment will get an email notifying you that someone else resolved it. Okay, so, and actually kind of have a look at what I wrote there. I just wanted to remind people that feedback should be timely, descriptive, easy for students to understand, and provide opportunities for students to improve their work. So you can see that Google Drive would be a great tool to be able to do all of those things. And just let you play for a moment in there. So in terms of assessment, it's really important, as I mentioned earlier, that we're exploring all three: observations, conversations, and student products. So a lot of teachers just seem to focus on the products, and at that they don't always make the products accessible for all the students. So we also need to make sure that we're counting on observations and conversations and having lots of conferences as well. And so you can see how you would use descriptive feedback. I want to mention, we don't have time for it, but there's a tool called Kaizen, and it is, let me just spell that for you. It is a wonderful tool that would go along with a Google document. And basically what that would do, if I'm typing my comment, my tab in the side, that's all well and good, but there may be some students who don't understand. So Kaizen is a tool, it's an extension that you can add on to your Google Drive that allows you to give recorded feedback for your students. So then that kind of levels the playing field, and you can explain to them something, and then they can make a recording to respond to your feedback. Okay, so we know that the differentiated assessment, so if we're giving differentiated content and products and processes, then the assessment has to be consistent with those. I mean, obviously we wouldn't give an assessment that didn't really match. So we know that even after gradual release that some students might need more scaffolding and they might not be able to do the assessment independently. And so hopefully I've given you lots of tools that you would be able to use to help the students. So let's just pop back into our slides. These are some resources that I'm suggesting that you might want to explore, and some of them I've used today, and some of them are ones that are just handy to have to explore the subject further. And I just want to leave you with some thoughts. I want to challenge you to dare to be different and leave you with this quote, and also to tell you another quote. One of the foundational goals of education is to educate students to be lifelong independent learners. So I encourage you to challenge yourself to explore some of these tools. I know if you don't do it right away, you might forget some of them. But please, by all means, feel free to connect with me on Twitter or send me an email, and I'd be happy to continue to learn with you about doing what's best for our students and encouraging them to be the best that they can be. So are there any questions, anything else people want to share? I know we've come extremely close to the end of our time. Yeah, there's lots to think about, and I barely scratched the surface, and I'm going to leave people with lots more to explore.
Wow. I'll jump in there. I have so many tabs open in my browser now, and they're all really cool things. I'm going to have to bring some of them to my kids too. I'm going to advance our slide here. We'll make sure, of course, that you get all these links. Marie has actually prepared. Was it a Google presentation that you've done, Marie, or is it a Google Doc that's got everything? It's a Google presentation that has
Google presentation. So you want to share that with your email follow-up, or do you want me to put the link in?
Up to you. Up to you. If you want to grab the link, I've got another link hovering here, ready to get dropped in. This page doesn't quite look the way it normally does, folks. Dropping links was, again, Blackboard's a little bit off tonight, but you can click on those. So the link in the center is our feedback survey. So we do encourage you to go ahead and click on that big blue tiny URL. And the one below it, of course, is the calendar. And I am going to give Syria a chance to jump on here, but I did want to say something that's a little bit unusual, simply because there is so many resources tonight, and they will be all in Marie's Google presentation, as well as they'll be duplicated on the OTF Connects resource page for tonight's session, which typically we'll send a link out for you in the next day or so that has those links contained in it. But this is a recording, and there'll be other people that watch this session later who will have perhaps missed on some of those links that we didn't get into the chat yet. So I've already created the web page that will be the resource page for this session, and I'm going to drop that link in the chat. But at the moment, it's of course a very incomplete web page, so you don't have to click on it right now, but I wanted it to be captured in our recording so that those who watch this later will be able to just click on that, and it'll take them straight to the page that's got everything on it. So I'll say thank you, and I'll pass it over to Syria.
Thank you, Louise. And Marie, thank you so much. You've shared just so many great ideas, effective tools to help students communicate and improve their work. This is, I would say, a sample webinar that I would encourage participants to watch over and over again. You just need to practice. And all your great little videos are great tools for all of us to go back to and repeat and learn. So thank you again, Marie, for all that you've done to prepare tonight's session. It looks like you've certainly done an enormous amount of work. I'd like to thank each of you for giving your time to join us tonight and sharing your ideas in the text. All your comments are greatly appreciated. And do take a few minutes to fill in the exit survey. Your feedback is certainly important. And check out the other webinars that are scheduled over the next month. We have financial literacy tomorrow evening, and then next week we have the first environmental workshop. So those of you that are doing inquiry-based learning, the webinar on grade 4 to 6 science with an environmental focus, that also it's interdisciplinary with the new supports the new social studies curriculum. So you might want to check that out. So thank you all, and have a good evening.
Thank you, Syria. Thanks everyone for coming. I really appreciated the feedback as well. And I will try to pop in there's the link to my Google presentation. And just remember, it's not, you'll need to watch the video, the webinar again, because that won't be complete. You'll need to have both to make it complete. So thanks again, everyone.